Well, good afternoon and welcome back. This is our second installment of the course of our school law and K-12 governance. And today we're going to be talking about Brown versus Board of Education. As you know, many of you have discussed this case and probably studied it in some of your prior courses. But we're going to take a deep look into this case and discuss the current ramifications that it may have for the work you do as school leaders. You'll recall that the decision was rendered by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1954 in a 9-0 decision, and the question that was put before the court was that, is the segregation of children in public schools based upon race depriving minority children of equal protection of the law under the 14th Amendment? I would encourage you to become familiar with the 14th Amendment. We're going to be discussing that in many of the cases that we'll be covering this semester. It's a very important piece of the work you do every day, and it makes your work very difficult at times to determine exactly what equal protection really means. Now, one of the things that really made this case such a landmark decision was that it overturned a court decision that was rendered in 1896 by the court called Plessy versus Ferguson. And in this case, the court decided that separate but equal became the law of the land. As long as we had separate facilities of equal characteristics, then there was no need to worry about integration of the races. And Brown versus Board of Education, as you know, turned that decision on its head. The court in this case, in Brown, considered a bundle of cases. And one of the reasons they did is because the court made it pretty clear that this issue of racial segregation was not just an issue that was related to a particular area of the country. It was a nationwide issue, and as you read the case, you'll discover that cases in Virginia, in Kansas, in South Carolina, I think perhaps in West Virginia, all of these were cases dealing with separate and equal issues, and the court decided to bundle these cases and take a look at all of them. So that makes it very different as well. And in discussing this case, the court came down with several important principles that you need to be aware of. First of all, number one, racial segregation is interpreted as a sign of inferiority. So the mere fact that we had races separated sent a strong message to the country that one race was inferior to another. Number two, the separate but equal doctrine is inherently unequal and therefore should be put aside. Number three, public education is the state's most important responsibility, and we hear that from time to time, even in today's rhetoric, trying to determine in many states, and Florida certainly, where does education stand in terms of funding, in terms of importance, etc. So we'll be able to discuss some of that as well. Number four, segregation sanctioned by law affects a child's motivation to learn and retards a child's education and mental development. Therefore, the mere fact that we are endorsing segregation when it's sanctioned by law creates, as we mentioned before, an inferior class of people. Number five, discrimination, if allowed, leads to the condition of a subject race. So you can see how each of these principles builds upon the other and sends a very strong message that segregation should not be allowed again. And finally, this issue, as I mentioned before, is a nationwide problem, and it is not sectional. Now, as you look at the questions that I've developed for within the syllabus in Unit 1 and also in the forum, I want you to think about how you as school leaders guarantee equal protection under the law. Just think about your work. Think about your responsibilities, the things that you do. You will come into conflict with making sure that the very diverse population that you serve is treated equally and fairly. Think about some specific examples in which that happens with your work. And also the forum topic, think about the current state of our public schools from a global perspective, from a nationwide perspective, but also here in Florida. We are resegregating our schools. Why are we doing so, and what will be the detriment of public education if we allow this trend to continue? All right, so good luck on your work. Thanks.